Massdrop is an online group buy site with a large variety of products. Products can reach well below their MSRP, averaging around 50% off. Click the first link in the description to sign up. Hello guys, DarkLord Project here again, and today we have a $1,000 fast, small form factor Mini-ITX gaming PC build. So let's get started. So the CPU is the Intel Core i5-3570K, which is $230. It's 3.4 GHz, it's designed for overclocking, and it's quad core. So I decided to stick with this CPU because it is 3.4 GHz, which is a pretty good speed, but it is designed for overclocking. The 3rd gen just overclocks better than the 4th gen. That's just a plain out fact. And it is around the same price as i5 for the 4th gen counterpart. So I decided to get something that you could overclock a little bit more. But still, even if you don't want to overclock it, it's quad core 3.4 GHz, which are still some pretty beastly specs for gaming. So the motherboard is the Gigabyte GA877N Wi-Fi, which is $144. It's Mini-ITX, it's LG 1155, it has built-in Wi-Fi, and it has 2 PCIe lanes. So this is a pretty small motherboard, but the main thing I was really surprised about it, because it is Mini-ITX, which is small, it does have 2 PCIe lanes. So if you want to get something else, instead of just a graphics card, feel free to. But the main thing about this motherboard, it is Mini-ITX and has built-in Wi-Fi, which is a huge benefit, because Mini-ITX builds aren't going to be underneath a desk. They're most likely going to be in the living room, which is kind of hard to get Ethernet to for the most part. It's also LG 1155, which is the same socket as the CPU. The RAM is the G.Skill Ripjaws X series, which is $79. It's 8GB to 4GB 6. It's DDR3 clocked at 1600 MHz, and it's not very tall RAM. So the reason I specifically said that it's not tall RAM is because we do need small form factor RAM for this build. Some other RAM on the market around this price has these tall prongs for heat dissipation, but we do have a very small case, so the smaller parts the better. It's also 8GB to 4GB 6, which is pretty much average, same for it being DDR3 clocked at 1600 MHz. So this is on the cheaper end when it comes to RAM. Most RAM is around $80 to $85. I got this one for $79, and still some pretty good RAM, so no complaints there. So the hard drive is the Seagate Barracuda, which is $54. It's 1TB, 3.5 inches HDD, and it's 7,200 RPM. If you don't already know, I really do like Seagate Barracudas. They have great price, and they're very reliable hard drives. So it's 1TB, which is more than enough to hold even some media if you want to do this for media, but all of your games at a pretty good speed too, at 7,200 RPM. Obviously not as fast as an SSD, but you do get 1TB, and you'd be surprised how long 1TB will last you. It's also 3.5 inches. I would like a 2.5 inch drive, but their performance does drop when you drop in an inch, but it still really doesn't matter. You could easily fit this in the case. The case isn't super small, but still small enough that you have to get some smaller parts. The graphics card is the EVGA GeForce GTX 970, which is $360. It's superclocked 1.19 GHz. It's 9.49 inches. It's 145 watts thanks to the Maxwell architecture, and it has 4 GB of GDDR5 RAM. So don't be confused by it being made by EVGA. They do have 2 cards, the stock card that NVIDIA first releases, and then this is their regular kind of their super clocked edition, so this is the one they modified from the stock card. So like I said, super clocked at 1.19 GHz, which is very fast, but it is $360. Most GTX 970s aren't that expensive, but you are getting that super clocked 1.19 GHz. But that is great because there's no need to overclock the GPU, which I don't like doing for the most part. So getting super clock cards is what I recommend. It's also only 9.49 inches, which is very small, and it'll fit in the case perfectly fine. And we don't have to get a very demanding power supply because it's low wattage thanks to the Maxwell architecture. And 4 GB of GDDR5 RAM can run any monitor, possibly even 2 to 3 monitors with no issues at all. The case is the Corsair 250D, which is $75. It's Mini-ITX, it has a box design, and it's 11.52 inch video card slot. So this is a pretty good case. It has very nice looks to it, but it is $75, but it's well worth the $75 because it's made of some high quality aluminum and has a very nice brushed aluminum look at the front of the case, which I really like. It's all black. There isn't any other color variations, but it is a very small case. The Mini-ITX board should fit in fine because this case is designed for small PCs, and it also has a box design, which is very common in the small PC market. And it does have enough room to hold a fairly large video card. It's not very large, it's kind of tiny, but more than enough room to hold that in the case. And there's a good amount of ventilation in the case, which is pretty important because this is a gaming PC. So the power supply is the Corsair CX600, which is $60. It's 600 watts, it's semi-modular, and it's 80 plus bronze certified. Because the graphics card has the Maxwell architecture, we could save a lot of money on the power supply because it's only 600 watts instead of like a 750 watts, which I would get for a GTX 770. It's also semi-modular, so we could remove some small cables that really aren't necessary, so we could just pull it out of the power supply. But for the most part, most cables are going to be pre-built into the power supply, and 80 plus bronze certified is the standard for most power supplies at the lower end, but it will save some money on your energy bill, which is pretty good in my opinion. So the overview for this PC build is it's Mini-ITX and it's designed for gaming. So the main point for this build is Mini-ITX and gaming, which is kind of a hard combination because you do need some good ventilation for gaming parts, and Mini-ITX is just expensive in general. It's a very weird but kind of practical build depending on how you use it, but for the most part, most people who build this build will usually keep it in their living room or something. If I built this build, I would just leave it underneath my TV, so it is practical to a certain extent. So guys, make sure you check out purepc.net. That is our site, me, Scattervolt, the Spy Guy, and Seismic Squid. There's a lot of great tech content on there, and I think you guys should sign up and join the conversations we have there. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you later.